Lift is a heist comedy about a group of thieves trying to steal riches from a plane mid-flight. In this movie, we follow a group of thieves that are pretty standard cookie-cutter heist movie characters. I normally like to start my reviews with a bit more positivity, but really, there's no other way to describe these characters. This movie even gives us a montage at the beginning detailing each of their roles so that we understand what each of them contributes to the team, as if we couldn't just figure that out by watching. I mean, imagine if the Avengers began with these extravagant character cards like Iron Man, the brains, or the Hulk, the muscle, because how else could we know what role they play? Anyway, leading this ensemble is Cyrus, played by Kevin Hart. After the crew gets done with a big job, they get recruited by the Interpol agent that was tailing them. Abby, played by mbatha-raw, gives them an ultimatum. Go to jail or steal gold from a criminal mastermind so that he doesn't use it to commit acts of terror. They choose the latter, but the gold is being transferred via airplane, so they devise a convoluted plan to steal the gold while 40,000 feet in the air. So across the board, this movie was just pretty cliche. It's a totally formulaic and predictable heist movie that attempts to distinguish itself with the absurd premise, but it just didn't have enough absurdity. More ridiculous humor, especially incorporated into the action, could have given us a lot more fun to relish in. I'm not saying that every action movie needs to be really silly, but this movie was definitely lacking something, and I think it could have benefited from turning the humor dial up from a 2 to like a 6 at the very least. This movie was pretty sluggish at first. It spends the bulk of the first half just setting up the plot devices for the second half. I get it, they don't want to be guilty of a deus ex machina, so they clarify what all the devices are early on in the second act. But they didn't all need explanations. They didn't need to muddle the story by showing us every little thing that would be used during the heist. Sure, it was important for us to see some of the things that would prove to be relevant when the job would inevitably go south, but otherwise we can fill in the gaps when a certain tool is used in accordance to the plan. And by the way, that shouldn't be a spoiler. Obviously, the big job in a heist movie isn't gonna play out all according to plan. That's just a given. Just like how the next rom-com you watch, rest assured, is going to have the second act end with the couple splitting for some reason. So the whole first half of the second act focuses on the squad prepping for the job, and there's a lot of snarky camaraderie. I did not personally find the banter in this funny at all, but it at least gave us some amount of character dynamics, unlike the last Netflix original movie that I reviewed. But honestly, a lot of these characters are the same. They're either ditzy or they're tired of their comrades being ditzy. If you've ever watched an action series from the CW, then some of these characters will seem all too familiar. So Kevin Hart's character was a lot different from what we normally see him play. Normally he plays these characters that are very loud and silly, but Cyrus is actually pretty serious. At first I thought, oh cool, Kevin Hart's showing us that he has range, trying to play a different character. But honestly, with how uninteresting his character was and with how lacking the movie was around him, I actually think that a traditional Kevin Hart character as the lead would have been better. Cyrus and Abby have a little bit of a romantic history, and their dynamic is exactly what you would expect. She hates that he has to work with him, and he gradually establishes that underneath the haze of his charismatic mastermind persona, that he's actually really smart, caring, and worth her time. There is a scene in this movie that gives us a bit of character depth. Abby and Cyrus are talking about their experiences as kids in school. There is just a lot of very on-the-nose dialogue that just feels written. It's a bit melodramatic on Cyrus's end, and sometimes a bit expositional on Abby's. I can at least say good things about the production values. The movie is flamboyant with good VFX and great production design. It does feel like a big budget picture. It's just unfortunate that this polishes up a story that just felt cliche and predictable. It has a few entertaining moments, but don't expect anything original. This movie was certainly not terrible, but it was still quite disappointing. Unless this is your first heist movie, then this will probably disappoint you too. That said, if you want an easily digestible movie to watch while binge drinking, then yeah, it'll probably be entertaining. But I personally would not recommend this to any sober person who wants to watch something compelling. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please consider giving it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my reviews of ISS and Origin.